Good afternoon and welcome to Beitzah Daf Beitzah 29. Again, I'm without Shmuel or my brother-in-law Yehuda. Shmuel had to drive his Rebbe to the airport. Um, right now he's being told on the mikvah, so he's not available. I read in a story in Mishpacha magazine that the driver of Scheinberg, Asa Wittel, before he picked up Scheinberg from the airport, he used to tovel on the mikvah. So Shmuel is picking up his Rebbe in heeding the practice of Asa Wittel. He is toveling in the mikvah. When he's toveling in the mikvah, you can't get a hold of him, shuts his phone off. He's tovel 49 times. I had 49 Sharm of Tuma. The 50th time he'll be tovel when Mashiach comes. That's what he told me. I'm making this up. All right. Of course, I'm making it up. I joke about Shmuel. Shmuel, my friend, we love him. All right, we'll start from the Mishnah here on the bottom of Chav Cherem Amud Beis. L'yomer Adam l'tavach shkoli b'dinar basar. Person shouldn't say to a butcher. We know already he's not supposed to say, I want the ribs or I want the brisket. He can't say that. He also can't say, just give me a dinar's worth of meat. Now, where do they use a dinar? In the Gemara, they use a dinar. There's also a lot of countries, if you didn't know that use the dinar. They use the dinar as their currency. Chief among them is Kuwait. Kuwait uses, it's called the Kuwaiti dinar. It's the most expensive currency in the world. One Kuwaiti dinar is worth about close to three and a fourth U.S. dollars, maybe 3.5 by this point U.S. dollars. Inflation in America. So if you're looking for good currency, it's machlokas in the beginning of Kedushin, how much you have to mekadesh an isha with. So Beis Hillel says pruta. Beis Shammai says a dinar. According to Beis Shammai, you have to go to Kuwait to get the dinar, and then you have to bring it back there to Israel or America and mekadesh the woman. No Allah we learned today according to Beis Shammai. I'm joking. Dinar is, I don't know exactly what dinar is. This thing's stuck in my camera here. It's bothering me. All right. Anyway, you're not supposed to say, give me a dinar worth. You don't care what type of meat. Give me a dinar worth of meat. Give me a little bit of the ribs, a little brisket, a little bit of chuck. You can't say that. What he could do, you check the animal, divide the meat, and then price it. Either price it with a similar animal, or you knew the prices beforehand. Just don't mention a monetary value. How could you do it permissibly? The Surah Amri Tarta, Palgu Tarta. In Surah they said Tarta was an amount of meat. It was a way of signaling how much meat you want. Let's say you want a half of the cow, or a quarter of the cow. Benarish Amri Chalko Palgu Chalka. They would say Chalka was the word for, say, a half, or Palga Chalka was a fourth. And Mudisa Amri Uzio Palga Uzio. They would say Uzio was their word. Benar Palko to Masa Machasio Riva Palga Riva. So a fourth, half of a fourth, 1/8, let's say. Anyway, you say an amount of meat. You don't mention money. If you don't mention money, then it's okay. Mishnah says, Omer Adam L'Chaveru Mali Likli Zav Alomamida. You can say to your friend, Phil, we're talking about with liquid measures over here. You're selling beer or whatever, wine, or Johnny Walker. Only Blue Label, of course. Omer Adam L'Chaveru Mali Likli Zav Alomamida. Fill up this kli, but he can't use, he can't say a certain amount. I don't know, a pint. I want a pint of beer, or I want a liter. You can't say that. Again, mentioning a liter is uvin dechol, mentioning a price is uvin dechol. Let's say it was a measuring cup, a cup that was used to measure. Lo yimalenu, you can't even use that, even if you don't mention the meat. The ma'aseh b'abashal ben bitnin shaya mali midosav me'erev yom tov. He would fill up his measuring cups with beer. Apparently, he sold beer erev yom tov, and nosim lekuchos b'yom tov, and he would give them to the customers on Yom Tov. Avashal Homer Af B'Moed Oseken Mipnei Brure Hamidos. On Yom Tov, he was careful. He didn't want to do it because it's the reason he didn't want to do it on Yom Tov. Because you can't measure on Yom Tov. On Chol Hamoed, you're allowed to measure. Why would you do it? You do it because the minhag was to learn a lot of Torah on Chol Hamoed. You have free time. You're not working. So the Bittul Beis HaMedrash, if he was very makbid to wait for all the foam to settle. Once the foam settles, then you have to pour in more wine or pour in more beer, because the real value, the real amount, is without the foam. The foam subsides, and you're left with less. So he would have to wait. So he'd fill it up the night before, so that he wouldn't have to wait time, and he can give the customers very quickly and can go back to learning the Beis Medrash. Abashal, right? Abashal Omer Av B'Moed Osekim Mei Brurei Hamidos. Chacham Omrim Af B'Chol Osekim Mei Mitzvah Hamidos. The Chum say there's even a minhag to do this during the week when you gave out. They weren't drinking beer; they had oil, canola oil, let's say, shemen zayis, olive oil, cooking. When oil comes out of a kli, it drips out. It drips out very slowly. It's stuck to the side of the kli. So therefore, if you didn't leave it overnight to drip out, so then you'd be neglecting the customer the amount of whatever measure you measured out for him, and you poured it into his own bottle or his own kli, it would be lacking because not all of it, some of it gets stuck to the kli, so you have to leave it overnight like that. Again, these things are, if name is sure, so then you don't have to do them. We're going to see, like Gemara says, because people want to get their things fast. They want to make a quick purchase. People like Amazon, AliExpress, you do things quickly in business, commerce, e-commerce, everything's quick. They don't like to wait for the foam to settle, and they are mochel. They pardon, they forego the foam. They forego the amount that the foam takes up, or the extra oil that's left in the kli. They don't really care about that, but they were makbid and they wanted to make sure. They should give the right amount to the customers. Maya avalo b'mida. What does it mean, lo b'mida, in the Mishnah? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, avalo b'kli miyuchad b'mida. You can't give wine or beer or something like that in a kli that is normally used to measure. Aval kli ha'omi l'mida, a kli that is a backup kli, meaning it's never been used, but it's a replacement kli. If you lost the first one, yimalenu, that you could fill. Asher l'meimar, afilu kli ha'omi l'mida yimalenu. And he'd argue, and he says, even since it's designated to replace a kli of mida, it also has judged as a kli shel mida. You can't fill it up. Alma, gavi simple siyom to Yehuda l'chol rabban on the kula. When it comes to uvdin l'chol, when it looks like doing business practices on Yom Tov, Yehuda's machmir rabban are mekel ipcha shamin lahu. But we see the opposite. We've seen the opposite for the Desnan. In the previous days, in the Chav Ches, Rabbi Yehuda Homer Shoka Adam Basar can I get a kofis. When you have a scale, you can weigh meat and use kli, a utensil or a butcher's knife, meat cleaver, as a counterweight. You can't use a scale at all. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Lakula, Rabban Lachomra, Rabbi Yehuda's Meikla, Rabban Ramachmer Lagabi Ufim the Chol and Yom Tov. Kashi the Rabbi Kashi the Rabban the Rabbi Lakasha Hasim Shein Omid Lamido. Hakab Omid Lamido. There it's talking about a scale. It's not fixed what the measurement is going to be. Here we're talking about a kli where there's fixed measure. We know this kli holds a liter of water, a liter of liquid, and it's more than the chol. There, when you use a scale, you're doing something which people do during the week. When you fill up a measuring cup with a liter of liquid, that's not something you normally do during the week. Normally, you fill up a bottle of beer. You wouldn't give it straight from a measuring cup. Rav Amar, he gives a different explanation on Mishnah. Maya avalo b'mida. What does the Mishnah mean? Not b'mida. Shlo yizkor lo shei mida. When you use the measuring cup, you can't say the words a liter. You can't say half a liter. Aval kli amiyuchal b'mida yimalenu. But a kli that has a liter in it, then you could fill up, even if it's the one normally used. He says you can't even use a kli that has a liter designated written on it. Again, even if you have this explanation in the Mishnah, in which case even Rabbi Yehuda make a replacement kli would be okay, you still have a problem. Yehuda l'chum, Rabban l'kula, v'ha'ipcha shemil hu desnar, Yehuda omer shok adam batzar keneged ha'klivik and ha'kofis. Chum omrim ein mashkich d'apuzam kol likar, like the Mishnah said before. Amar Yehuda l'kula, Rabban l'chum, Rakash Yehuda, Rakash Rabban Rabban. Same question as before. There it's talking about a scale which doesn't have any fixed measures on it. How come yuchal lemida? Here we're talking about a kli which has marked on it a liter. There he's measuring on the scale with something people do during the week. Sometimes people, if you give them a kli that's marked with a liter, it's not something normally people do. Picks it up and really you're giving it the guy just to drink. He's like, he says, fill up that kli for me as a liter. He really is asking it, just give me the kli. I want to drink it already. I want a liter of beer right now. Liter of beer. How much is a liter of beer? It's close to 32 ounces a liter. 32 ounces of beer. I don't know. It's like how much? 3 cans of beer. Not too bad. Even during Chol Hamoed, he would do this, like we explained before, because he didn't want to waste time from learning. He brought to Yerushalayim 300 barrels of this extra foam or the wine that apparently sometimes he had a lot of customers, they were in a rush. So he had to sell that to them with the foam, and he couldn't let the foam subside. So, and then he had extra wine left over in the barrel that he filled up the kalim from, because the foam doesn't really count. So he had extra money. So eventually he filled up 300 barrels of wine from this extra foam wine. His friends also were very meticulous, not to overprice things, and they filled up 300 barrels of oil from kalim that were used to dispense oil to the public. It stuck to the kalim, they didn't want to wait. They brought in front of the accountants in Yerushalayim, the people, the Gaboyim in Yerushalayim, who were in charge of Hektish. They said, you're not responsible for this. You're allowed to charge them. You're allowed to take this for yourself, because they didn't want to wait for the foam to settle. We also don't want to be part. We're doing the thing. We also don't want this. Since you made a chumrah upon yourself, do public necessities with it. Tanya Gazal, Gazal, you stole from someone, you don't know who you stole from. You should do public necessities from the mining. You should have wells dug up, and shichin ditches, and maros and caves dug up, in order to be reservoirs of water. Adri Rav Chisda l'Ravna Ukva. Rav Chisda took Ravna Ukva v'darash l'yimdar adam sa'orim mitei lefnei behemto. A person shouldn't measure, again with a kli that's used for measuring barley, and put in front of his animal yom tov. L'koder hu kabo kabayim and osein lefnei behemto. What he could do is he could stick in the measuring cup in the sack of barley and get a kabo kabayim. Because that's not the normal way of doing it. The normal way of doing it is to take with your hand from the sack of barley and put it in the measuring cup. If you stick the measuring cup in the sack of barley, so that's not open the chotz shinoi. And someone who's a chef, he's allowed to measure the spices he puts in a dish, in order that it shouldn't be too spicy. Because ochel nefesh is something which is important on Yom Tov. You don't want your dish to be too spicy. Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Amar Rav, Moded Isha Kemach b'Yom Tov, and she can also measure flour on Yom Tov and put in her isa and her dough. In order that she take off challah, you have to take off 1/24 if you have a certain minimum amount of dough that you're kneading at one time. So if you know the amount that you're doing, so you'll do vayin yaf. You'll know you put a lot of flour in there, so you'll take off a bigger portion of challah. It's a mitzvah to do, hither mitzvah. To do a bigger amount of challah. Challah is a mitzvah. To do a bigger amount of challah is a bigger mitzvah. L'chora. Shmuel Amar Aser, suppose you can't do this. Vatana de Shmuel Mutter, but in the academy of Shmuel, they said it was Mutter. She's allowed to measure. Amar Abai Hashd Amar Shmuel Aser, Vatana de Shmuel Mutter. Shmuel himself, he said Aser. And his academy, his yeshiva, they said it's Mutter. Shmuel Lachal Maisa Aser Lashmin. Shmuel, if you asked him personally, he would tell you the real halacha that it's Aser. His academy had the real halacha, halacha lamaisa, halacha lamaisa, the real halacha lamaisa asoshin, and he was telling the public what to do. If you ask him privately, you go to his yeshiva, they would know the real halacha. The real halacha, Meker Adin, is that it's mutter. He would tell people it's aser because he didn't want the public to mizalzel on this. Tanrabanan, ein shonin kemach b'yom tov mishum. You can't resift flour on Yom Tov. To sift it the first time is a problem. Rocket, sift flour, take out the pebbles, take out the stones. That's a problem on Yom Tov. Rocket is not something Melisha, it's not something before Lisha. Tosfos said now Gimel Melisha ve'elech only elchol nefesh from Lisha and above in the process of making bread. But you could resift it just to have a finer texture. You're not taking out anything. You're not doing it's not a finer sieve. Mishum Rabbi Pius, Rabbi Yehuda Meseram was shown, and they said, so the Rabbanan said you can't resift because where it goes there that you might come to actually sift the first time, sift out the pebbles. And Yehuda Meseram says we're shown, and you can't resift. We're not worried about goes there. Shavin Shim Nafal Sochan Soro Kisim shown it. If you sifted it the first time before the Yom Tov, and then now on Yom Tov a pebble fell in, then you could do it on Yom Tov. Because it was something that you couldn't have done me'esmol, and therefore you could do marakid as long as you do it with a shinoi. Tani Tanakh Ravina and Shon Kemach b'Yom Tov, you can't resift on Yom Tov. Al Nafal Sora Kisim Borer b'Yado. He said you can't use a sieve; you have to take it out with your hand. Amalei Kolshkin. They said to him that's even worse. The Havalek a borer. That's like borer. When you take the psolos min ha'ochel, bad from the good, that's a problem. Darash Rabba Bar Rav Huna Zuti Apiskin Harda Shonin Kemach b'Yom Tov. You have to resift. You're allowed to resift. Amar Lahu Rav Nachman Bokuva Amrulay La'aba Shkila Tivuska V'Shadi Achizri. He said to him, go take your kula that you told everyone and throw it on the thorns. Pokazi Kama Muhulsa Hadron bin Aharda. All the sifters are resifting in the Harda. They already know this halacha. They know you're allowed to resift. You didn't tell us anything. B'Yisau Rav Yosef Na'ala Kimcha Agaba Damahulsa. She would resift the flour on the back of a sieve in order to do a shinoi. We said before you have to do a shinoi. Amar la chazi da'an rifta ma'alisa ma'ina. He said to her, don't be so frum. Don't be machmer upon yourself. You don't need a shinoi. When there's no stone in there, when there's no pebble that fell inside, just to resift it for finer texture. I want better bread on Yom Tov. Don't be machmer. We saw the Rav Ashi's wife, Nahala Kimcha Gaba the Psura. She would resift the flour on the back of a table. Apparently, this is a common way of resifting. Amar Rav Ashi had didan barte d'ram rachama. My wife, our wife, his wife is the daughter of Ram Rachama. Ram Rachama Mara de Uvdaha. Ram Rachama is the one who taught this teaching. He is the master of this teaching. If he loved the Chazim Ben Asha lo avda. If she, my wife, didn't see it in Ram Rachama's house, this chumrah, she wouldn't have done it. So it's a legitimate chumrah, and you have to be machmer. The Mishnah: Holich Adam is the Chamni Aragas of Amar Lotenli Beitzah Be'Gozim Amin. You're allowed to say a number. You can't say a price, and you can't say a particular cut of meat. What you could do is you could say a number of eggs or a number of nuts. Because it's not a commercial practice, even domestically in the house. People count eggs, they count nuts. At the end of meals for dessert, everyone divides up. There's exactly 15 pistachio nuts. Every person gets 3 nuts. It's 5 people at the table. Everyone gets 3 nuts. Common practice. People with very few pistachio. So you can go to the shepherd you're familiar with. Give me a young kid, a kid goat, or a young sheep. So I can go to his local butcher. Say, give me a shoulder, or give me a thigh. We said before that you can't say a particular cut of the meat. that's when you're when it's known the price. When the price is known and the price is not known, you're just gonna figure the price after you don't know. That's okay. It's al pitem haragel eslo, the person who fattens poultry. V'omelo tainli torech adol gozalech, give me a dove or a pigeon. It's al nachtom haragel eslo, to his bakery, local bakery. V'omer lo tainli kikar echad gluska echad. Achas, give me one loaf of bread or one roll. V'oitzal chamini haragel eslo, to his regular makolet makolet owner, whatever, the shopkeeper, supermarket guy. Omer Lotanli Esrim Beitzah Chamisha Megos, give me 20 eggs or 50 nuts, Asara for Sakin, 10 peaches, Chamisha Rimonim, 5 pomegranates, Esrog Echad. He wants one Esrog for Sukkot, even though Sukkot is over now. He wants it for next Sukkot. Vavaj lo Yaskil Skol Mida, as long as he doesn't say a measurement. Rishimon ben Lazar, Omer Vavaj lo Yaskil Skol Mekach. You can't say a price either. Again, we learned saying measurements, saying prices, try to avoid on Yom Tov. You could do is say a number of eggs that you want, a number of nuts that you want. Get all the eggs, all the nuts that you want. And have a good year. Bye.